Kuzu Zangpo and a very warm welcome to this week's edition of Bhutan This Week with me, Namgye Wangchuk. Our top stories. His Majesty the King granted an audience to the victims of fire incident in Funeling. The Agriculture Ministry needs an additional amount of about 2 billion mutum to complete new projects in the 11th five-year plan. And Pema Khatsal decides Denchi Town to be its Zongkhag Thomte. His Majesty the King granted an audience to the victims of the fire incident in Funeling on Wednesday. His Majesty the King, accompanied by Her Majesty the Gyaltsen, arrived in Funeling soon after the incident. His Majesty the King and Her Majesty the Gyaltsen is there to provide and oversee immediate relief efforts to the victims.
12 makeshift huts and 12 families. Whatever little they had went up in flames. 2 boys aged 2.5 and 4 lost their lives in the fire in Tursa in Funeling. The mothers had apparently locked them inside and gone to hospital.
Tatu kangil yisu do kangil tatu ngachi ka ne kapchi tatu junga to le na misami rurambe jini sani thuni belura acha tabji to bre ta ba jushil ventorom na acha ta disi chimchimi beodoti acha kangil chi di ani zumji bera thommes shuni
textbook nga ju desi dele ngaragi hemale disame old book mala chemistry maths biology physics ani book ji sisunolo megite ani chibeda This class 10 na gade vesba de asi dokpa cha diela kirana dene ge dinga chugi dita building na sada dinga chugi di tolop renela.
The victims are temporarily housed at the Youth Development Fund hostel. They express their gratitude to His Majesty the King and Her Majesty the Gyaltsen for the love, care and support.
Machilu dichu shiru dinigi ninigi and nikhang be chingde ase sem gai se shunila Dimace, Machiri Jugil Napa, the Ajitan Pemoa Choya, Nachin, the Machina, some Sengi Dinera, the Langachilo, Anzame Japchuna Midilu, Machisengi Dinam Chia, Jamie Tunime session.
Jun Shable, Anizum Jing, Achayam Giba di Sulani, Tab Madua, Anim Tibi, Shapchak Tinacha Midilu, Nado Gabrielu, Kadinga to the Shuachin Tangari, Nigi Samagat, Shuemisa, Kadushu name is Shibesi.
A private individual sponsored the dinner for them yesterday. However, the Funeling Thomde will be providing food for about next 10 days. At the moment, the cause of the fire is not known. Compiled for Kingatashi, Sringdama Gyaltsen for BBS News.
His Royal Highness Gyaltsab Jimmy Doji Wangchuk commanded Hunsi Zongkhag to identify a suitable state land to relocate the families affected by a landslide recently. His Royal Highness also commanded the Zongkhag to prepare the design of the houses for further submission to His Majesty the King.
His Royal Highness the Gyaltsab visited Yumche village on the 5th of September, where a landslide affected houses of 7 families. His Royal Highness inspected the structures and areas affected by the landslides. His Royal Highness also met with the affected families and conveyed the deep concern and condolences from His Majesty the King. On behalf of His Majesty the King, His Royal Highness granted cash semso of 20,000 mutum each and other royal soera to the 7 affected families. His Royal Highness conveyed the people that His Majesty the King has commanded to grant CGI sheets, royalty-free timbers, kimsa and other necessary supports for the construction of new houses. On 24th August 2015, a large portion of the land between Yumche village and the farm road below began sliding, putting houses above the road at risk. The landslide has affected 7 families living in 4 houses. The affected families have been shifted to the relief shelters along with their belongings. The relief shelters were set up immediately by Hunsi Zongkhag and Jerry Gyok upon the command of His Majesty the King. The landslide affected a total of 8 structures, including 1 laga, 6 residential houses and 1 outreach clinic. His Royal Highness also commanded to conduct a thorough study to enable appropriate measures to avoid similar disasters in the future. Pemanamge, BBS News.
Former Health and Education Minister Sangye Ngidop is awarded the Excellence in Public Health by the WHO Southeast Asia region for path-breaking interventions which helped improve the health and well-being of the people in the country. A press release from the WHO states that the former minister was recognized for setting up the Bhutan Health Trust Fund to ensure continued funding of vaccines and essential drugs. He also raised support and funds by traveling 560 kilometers on foot within the country in 2002. WHO also awarded the former president of Timor-Leste, Gus Mau. The WHO awards were initiated last year to recognize public health professionals or institutions whose work had resulted in far-reaching implications and gains. A bear has killed 2 calves and seriously wounded another 2 on Tuesday night in Rukupji Chiok under Sefugyok in Wangdi Phodrang. Including the attack, the bear has killed 7 calves, 2 milking cows and wounded another 2 calves over the past couple of months. Villagers said they are worried about their safety as bear frequently visits their village to attack their cattle. Forestry officials are investigating the incidents and working on to compensate the affected households. The Ministry of Agriculture is faced with a resource gap of close to 2 billion ngutram for the next 3 years of the 11th five-year plan. This was raised during the midterm review of the Agriculture Ministry held in the capital on Wednesday.
The Ministry of Agriculture has a total budget outlay of 13 billion, of which 4.8 billion is capital budget and 8.8 billion recurrent. However, the capital budget was revised to 6.7 billion, leading to a resource gap of 1.9 billion. The additional requirement was on account of the ministry taking up new irrigation and electric fencing projects. Finance Minister Namge Dorji said sources were limited when it came to getting the additional financial requirement. The minister said the economy was already facing huge shortages in terms of current account deficit. Agriculture Secretary Tenzin Dendrup said as the 11th five-year plan progresses, there would be savings from other projects which can be utilized for the additional requirement. Officials also discussed on the possibility of pre-financing some of the projects to reduce incidences of inefficient use of budget.
We can set aside a small portion from our consolidated fund which can be used to pre-finance other projects under project-tied assistance. It will not be a problem if you use the money meant for PTA to finance other PTA projects.
Earlier, pre-financing of five-year plan projects has been recognized as one leading cause of the shortage of rupee. During the review, several questions were also raised on the low budget utilization in the first 2 years of the plan due to delay in the release of funds. Nidub Gelson for BBS News.
Grunshari Primary School in Punakha is in dire need of maintenance. The school building suffered cracks in 2011 earthquake. The issue was raised in the recent Zongkhag Chokdu for financial support to repair the building and other structures.
This is Grunshari Primary School. The walls in the classrooms are cracked, ceilings and floors are in bad conditions. Since its establishment in 1991, no maintenance works were carried out. And with the earthquake in 2011 damaging the structures, teachers and locals say it would not stand a chance if another disaster strikes again.
Our
school is in risky state, and since there is plan to relocate the school, maintaining the school is considered wastage of money. So I think due to that it was not maintained. As you can see, after 2011 earthquake, the school structures are in bad condition. Walls of the classrooms are cracked. It is risky for the teachers and students to use classrooms.
As far as I'm concerned, the school is dire need of maintenance. Everybody is aware that the school is in poor state, but nobody cares. When we approach the concerned authority, they say the school is in risky state and soon it will be relocated. So there is no use of major maintenance.
Recently, the issue reached the highest decision-making body in Zongkhag, the Zongkhag Chodu, requesting for budget.
2011 earthquake damaged Gyanshari Primary School and its structures are in bad condition, following which the school proposed for maintenance to the Gyok. So the Gyok consulted with the Zongkhag and it was decided to relocate and upgrade it with hostel facility. Initially, the budget for relocation was also released during 2012-2013 fiscal year. However, though the land was identified, getting term was delayed, so the budget went back to the government.
The Zongkhag Tsogdo asked the principal and the district education officer to approach the education ministry and begin the maintenance works at the earliest. For Chonidema in Punakha, Tamchisam for BBS News.
46 households of Tilegang under Tebisa Gyok in Punakha are not happy with the cash compensation received for the land they lost during the Thimphu-Wangdi highway widening. They have asked the Gyok administration to relook at the matter. A total of 51 households were affected by the widening works.
Among the 46 landowners, some lost only about 1 to 4 decimals, while most of them lost about 8 decimals. As per the Land Act, land measuring less than 10 decimals are not entitled for land substitution.
I received Newton 31,000 for 8 decimal land. I gave land for the road widening because it would be helpful to the people. But on the other hand, considering the compensation received, it's a loss for us.
I lost 8 decimals of land during the road widening and received 33,000 Newton as compensation. I am not happy because we are not entitled for land substitute and government rate for compensation rate is too low. We don't know what to do.
After the land is taken away, the remaining portion, being a wetland, becomes fragile and starts to slide down, which adds to loss that the owners are already facing.
Of the 51 affected landowners, 5 received land substitution as they lost more than 10 decimals of land. Tebisa Mami Kimsri said during the Zongkhag Tsogdo last year, the Gyok had proposed if the government could take the whole of 10 decimals of land within 50 feet from the road. However, the proposal was turned down. The issue was raised again during this year's Zongkhag Tsogdo. The Mangmi submitted that the government look for an alternative to provide land substitution. Kampal for Chonidama, Sharab Sangmo for BBS News.
Farmers will soon be introduced to grafting of tomato using local eggplant rootstock. This is expected to enhance tomato production and improve livelihood of the farmers.
The grafting of tomato was first tried at the Vanstisina Agriculture Technology Farm in Thimphu. At the farm, improved technologies are practiced and demonstrated. The tomato plants were graded in April this year. It was then kept in ventilation for a week to monitor its survival rate. Shankar Chetri, the Deputy Chief Horticulture Officer from the Ministry of Agriculture and Forests, said the practice will help in reducing tomato import in the country.
Normal tomato is affected by tomato blight, which is the major disease of tomato. But the grafted one is fully resistant to tomato blight. And the other advantage is if you do the tomato cultivation outside the field or inside the greenhouse, with the normal tomato, you can harvest only twice or maximum thrice. It will finish up by blight because of heavy rain. No? So the grafted one planted on protected under protected cultivation will remain for 9 months. The farmers, if they practice, they can go on harvesting weekly.
He added extension officers will be trained on the grafting techniques who will impart the knowledge to the farmers in their respective kiosk. The Agriculture and Forest Ministry will also provide farmers with plastic to construct greenhouses for the production. Tikilhamo, BBS News.
The former Foreign Minister Rindan Doji has decided to appeal to the Supreme Court against the High Court's verdict passed last week. The High Court had convicted him to 1 year imprisonment. He was charged for violating the Civil Service Act and Anti-Corruption Act by misusing the pool vehicle when he was the then Hazonda. But he can pay 45,000 ngütram in lieu of imprisonment. The former minister was also fined over 100,000 ngütram for misusing the pool vehicle. The amount is to be paid within 10 days of the decision. The former minister had used the pool vehicle for transportation of 10 trips of private timber from Ha to Thimphu. Denchi town in Pema Gachal will be the Zongkhag Thomde and Nganglam its Yenla Thom. The recent Zongkhag Chogdu decided this through a secret ballot.
Prior to the sitting, local leaders had discussed the matter with the people of the respective Geoks. The outcome of this consultation was then presented during the Zongkhag Chogdu by the local leaders. Like earlier, people of Nganglam Dungkhag preferred Nganglam to be the Zongkhag Thomde. There are 3 Geoks under Nganglam Dungkhag.
Nganglam Dungkhag is big enough to cater to not only the people of Pema Gachal Zongkhag but also from other places. That's why people want Nganglam to be the Zongkhag Thomde.
On the other hand, local leaders of 8 Geoks proposed Denchi to be the Zongkhag Thomde.
Nganglam has already seen development, so people fearing that the Zongkhag headquarters might remain as remote as it is considered want Denchi to be Zongkhag Thomde.
Following the establishment of mega projects, Nganglam has been naturally developing. Moreover, the government has identified it as special economic zone. So I don't see the need to take any extra initiative to develop the town. Fostering a balanced development in the Zongkhag is everyone's responsibility.
Following the expression of opinions by the local leaders, the issue was decided through a secret ballot. 14 of the 20 members present voted for Denchi as the Zongkhag Thomde. 6 voted for Nganglam. In the previous Zongkhag Chogdu, as proposed by the Works and Human Settlement Ministry, members had endorsed Nganglam as Zongkhag Thomde. But at the parliament, members were divided on endorsing Nganglam as the Zongkhag Thomde. At the end, both Nganglam and Denchi were voted out as they failed to secure 2/3 majority votes. Compiled for Tilnedoji, Taralimbu for BBS News.
Country's oldest food manufacturing industry, the Bhutan Food Products Private Limited in Samchi, saw their production slumping during the last few years. This has been mainly due to fierce market competition and lack of professionals, especially at the production unit.
Started in the early 70s as a small preservative unit, over the years, the Bhutan Food Products Private Limited became famous as a house of truk products. It produces more than 30 varieties of jams, squash, juices, pickles and sauces. However, in the last 1 decade, the production has decreased as demand from India, where 70% of their products are exported, declined. Agro-industries had boomed in the Indian states. Officials at the manufacturing unit said the prices of raw materials have also increased.
The Indian farmers are now preferred to supply the raw materials to their home-established industries. If we import those raw materials, by the time it reaches here, it becomes too expensive for us. We cannot even do the pricing at our own whims because if we do, our competitors take advantage of this and might make their pricing cheaper than our products.
The other challenge the industry currently faces is the lack of experts to man the production unit. Although the plant has a capacity to produce over 20 tons of products daily, the plant has been producing lesser now.
Perhaps we need to see how we manage, especially by focusing on improving the manpower. Earlier, we had enough experts who would take care of the production unit. Over the years, many of them have left the job and it has become a problem.
From 300 to 400 day workers a decade ago, today there are about 200 workers that keep the industry going. For now, most of the machines have moved on to semi-automated. However, keeping up with the changing times and demand, there are plans to make the manufacturing process fully automatic. For Sonam Phuncho in Samsi, Sonam Mongdi, PBS News.
Individuals can now carry Indian rupee denominations of 500 and 1000. But according to the central bank's notification, individuals will not be allowed to carry more than 25,000 rupees. Bankers said the idea was to ease cash handling as it became easier to carry Indian currency in higher denominations. It was also aimed at easing the difficulty Indian tourists faced while traveling to Bhutan, since they were required to carry only 100 denominations Indian rupee earlier. To avoid counterfeit notes, the notification states various counterfeit note detecting machines have been installed at commercial banks in Thimphu, Funeling and Gelifu. In order to strengthen the watch over drug and tobacco trafficking, the police in Gelifu have deployed 2 sniffer dogs at the border gate. It has been about a month since the dogs have been screening vehicles entering the country.
Police have intercepted 4 cases of drug and tobacco trafficking with the help of the sniffer dogs so far. Almost every vehicle entering the country at the gate is screened by the dogs. With the initiative, locals are hopeful of seeing a decrease in illicit drug and tobacco activities in the town.
Since the dogs thoroughly screen vehicles, I hope it will be helpful in monitoring illegal imports of drug and tobacco products. It's a good initiative. I think now drug and tobacco trafficking will decrease.
Police said the dogs will also be used during their investigations in and around Gelifu. The dogs were brought from India. 2 dog keepers have also been trained. For Phuba in Gelifu, Tsiringzangmo for BBS News.
Bhutan national men's football team faced their biggest loss since 2000 against Qatar on 3rd September. The Bhutanese team was outclassed as they were thrashed 15-0 by Qatar in the AFC World Cup qualifiers.
And Mr. Isha, any predictions from your side?
From my experience in football, for big teams,
Bhutan's defense proved fragile and could not keep attacks from the Qatari at bay. The ample space in the Bhutanese defense line added to the team's misery early on. Bhutan conceded its first goal just 7 minutes into the game. It was followed by a shower of goals at regular intervals.
That's the 3rd goal.
Trailing 8-0 at halftime, there was no chance for the Bhutanese team to stage a comeback. The attack from Qatari continued in the second half as Bhutan struggled and failed to put up a challenge.
And look at that is goal number 9.
Qatar scored 7 more goals with 2 of their players registering hat-tricks in their names.
Good first touch there by
Qatar wrapped up their biggest ever win and is placed in the 2nd position in its group.
Shocking to hear them. That's goal number 15. But the fact that the small group of
Bhutan still remains at the bottom of the table with 3 defeats and 28 goals conceded in the AFC World Cup qualifiers. Chetan Dupchu, BBS News.
Well, that's all we have for this edition. Until next time, this is goodbye.